So yeah, like kind of, because going back to being black people not being a monolith, or African not a monolith, to me accepting and then also like trying to articulate to people that yes, I can be proud of being British and being Yorkshire and not be less African, or I can have an accent and still represent some type of African, because there's different ones. So I'm not gonna claim, okay, I'm definitely African. Obviously, I didn't grow up there. So yes, there is a difference in my mannerism, in my way of understanding things. There's an obvious difference. We know that. Like we've spoken about that a million times. But then, can I just be as someone from diaspora? Can I just be a different type of representation? Because when we're not all the same, it's varied. So can I be just a different type of African? I don't believe so. Like I think I have a right to that. You know,
That
or
is
can
such
bring
a fascinating question. Do I have a right to that?
Yeah. Actually, and who are you to decide? Who are you to give me that right?
Oh my God, this is going to be an interesting conversation.
Life be driving me crazy like, and my friends be like, it's not that deep, right? And the fam be saying, you're in your feelings, what? All I know is, life is raggedy.
Hello, welcome back to the Reforming Pessimist podcast. It's your girly Abanga Lydia, and I'm here with
Jabz.
And we're here with another episode of We Are Not a Monolith series, where we're talking about things that are not monoliths. We need to stop with the one stereotype that you're this one type of person. Nobody's ever binary. We are all multitudes of things. So we're here to talk about Blackness and specifically Africanness, because we are both African women. I am of Ghanaian descent. Jabz is of
Tanzanian descent.
I don't know. I'm trying to pass it on to you instead of just saying, when do I talk? When do I talk? Yeah, Jabz is of Tanzanian descent, East Africa, West Africa. Hey, hey. And we just wanted to discuss, perceptions, attitudes towards, Blackness, Black Africanness, what we found, our experiences of it, and our thoughts, because we do have a lot of thoughts and we want to have conversations about it. So welcome to the podcast. So as usual, we do check-ins and wellness check-in. So Jabz, are you doing great? How are you feeling? How are you doing? Tell me more.
All right. Things are coming in thick and fast. I can't lie. My plate is starting to feel a little bit full and slightly overwhelming. But I am choosing to stay positive and just stick on it. I think I'm not always like this. So if you check in with me, it's not always going to be like, oh, I'm staying positive. There will be times when I'm just like, meh. But for now, it's very much like, you know what? Let's just crack on with it. New year. Let's see how it goes.
Yeah.
What
And
about
honestly, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go on. What are you going to say?
And honestly, life is raggedy. Life is hard. Life never gives you breaks. You know what I mean? It be your Mike Tyson. It be punching you and punching you and punching you. You take it, in some days you do it in optimism. Other days you do it in goddamn right pessimism. Our favorite word. Yeah, I'm glad that you're holding it in high regards and you're being positive about it. Life does get heavy sometimes, but we pray for it to lighten up at some point. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm really excited to talk to you about being Black, being African. So can we start off with, what are your thoughts on being a Black woman, first of all? Because we're both Black British, so that's a big thing for us. And then also, what are your thoughts of being an African woman as well? What are your opinions on that?
Obviously, I'm proud of who I am, as a Black woman, Black British woman, and African, British African, whatever. Very proud, very content. But could I say it was always like this? I feel like it was like a journey to accepting, understanding myself, understanding my environment, stuff like that. What about you?
Yeah, so for me, and actually, again, let's also kind of go back a little bit and establish our genesis, because I think that will also speak to our Blackness and our Africanness. I was born in Ghana, and I grew up in Ghana until I was 14, 15, before I migrated to the UK. So I had grown up in a world where I have just known being a Black woman. I didn't really think about being a Black woman per se, or being African per se. I just knew myself by my tribe, which is that I'm a Kusasi woman living in a different tribe world, which is the Ashanti Ghanaian world. So I grew up there. So like I just known by like the differences that I could, maybe separate myself from other people, other Black people around me, was based on my tribe and the tribe that I came from. And of course, I think the xenophobia exists in all forms, in all parts of the world, even in tribalism and stuff like that. So that was very much in existence. I'm a Northern Ghanaian person, and Northern Ghanaians have a lot of stereotypes and a lot of discriminations against them when you live in the Ashanti part of But at the same time, there was a lot of love. You know what I mean? We were kids. A lot of kids love each other. We didn't really care about our tribes per se. I think you heard more of them also from like the older generation than you did from the younger kids. We kind of like got along with each other and just like had fun with each other. And so it was me migrating to the UK that this whole idea of being a Black person, being a specific kind of a Black person, and being a specific kind of an African person became a thing for me, because I had never thought of it. And that's the thing about living in the West, living in England, like, all the different like social structures that are in place, that, hierarchies that are in place that we are not very familiar with until you walk in it. So I got into England, and automatically also we both grew up northern England, which was not very much populated by a lot of Black people at that time. More so for Jabz, us, because she was here longer than me. She was practically born here. I'll let her go on at some point, but she was practically born here. I came to start hating my Blackness and my Africanness because it made me stick out a lot, like a sore thumb. It made me stick out as like very different to everybody else. And I was a teenager, so you become very self-conscious of yourself and who you are as a person and stuff like that. So it just like yourself as well, it was a complicated relationship that I had with my Blackness and my Africanness, and it took me slowly evolving and growing, and then becoming a thing for me. In particular, when we started at our sixth form, where there was more Black people, which is where I met Jabz. That is where my point of view and my attitudes changed towards Blackness, because at that time Afrobeats were popping off. This is in 2011. Afrobeat was popping off. I remember You Go Kill by Sarkodie had just dropped, and everybody in the college was doing their dance move. Things were like, you know what I mean? Things were like,
just like a hyper vibe, like
the vibe was vibing. There was the common rooms that we had in our college, it was segregated. Unfortunately, it ended up being that way, where the smaller part of the common room where the canteen was like the Black people section, and the bigger common room on the other side of the college was the white people section, and then there was the downstairs where I don't know if that's where the Asians hang out. I don't know. But for some reason, we all kind of mentally just segregated. Yes, we also had friends. I had white friends, I had Asian friends as well, but it's just that when it came to breaks, we stuck with our group. When you're in class, you stuck with the different racial groups. When it came to break, we stuck, and that's how I ended up meeting Jabz in a common room, and that's how our relationship basically started. So that's kind of, I would say, my Blackness and my relationship with Blackness. So yeah, so sorry, do you have any points to add?
Well, I'll give you like a brief summary, as we've like touched upon. Well, I was born in Tanzania, but I came to UK like as a baby. So just for the flow of things, sometimes I would just say I was born here, just to kind of, coming in explain. I came here when I was 3 months, but it's a bit long. So I was born in UK, or I'm practically born in UK. Maybe that's how I'll phrase it. But yes, I was born in Tanzania, and I was a Tanzanian citizen. Actually, I only became a British citizen when I was 16. Considering I lived in UK most of my life, that was a bit
I didn't know that.
For whatever reason. But yeah, my parents were born in Tanzania. They grew up there. But if we're looking in terms of like grandparents, there's a bit of a mix. So there's Rwandese, Ugandan in there. And then also my parents, their social circle is quite wide. So even in UK, we interacted with all different types of East Africans. So even now, people are not really quite sure like exactly where I'm from. And I'm not too much like, I'm proud obviously to be Tanzanian, but I don't feel like it's much a focal point. I would just say I'm African, specifically East African. Yeah.
That's fascinating to me. Before, just a quick segue as to why you categorize us as East African instead of like Tanzania, because I ride Ghana like hard and proud. The nationalism, the patriotism of Ghana. I'm like, if you go on my Instagram bio, it was a Ghanaian babe Kusasi made. Yes, Ghana. Like, Right, Ghana. So hard. It's crazy. So I wonder why like you choose East Africa instead of just riding Tanzania. What's the difference for you in that sense?
I think to be okay, if you ask me, like obviously I'll be like, okay, I'm Tanzanian. Where are you from? I'll be like, okay, I'm Tanzanian. But to be like to maybe like put it in my bio, to put the flag, to put I feel like okay, am I being authentic because I'm very much British and very much Yorkshire as opposed to UK?
Mm.
So I'm a bit less reluctant to say, oh well, I'm Tanzanian, you know. And then also and then maybe something we're going to go into deeper further along the episode. I've been told a lot of times, and many times, hundreds of times. This is not an exaggeration. That I am not Tanzanian, so I'm also very reluctant to kind of.
Mm. Is that identity has basically been taken away from you. And I get it because I get you because like, and I think maybe some of the audiences, hopefully they will be able to also comment the experience in terms of like growing up Black and African or growing up Black and Caribbean or just growing up other in the UK in general. I think that anybody who's an other would definitely get what we're talking about. But there is this kind of internal struggle that you have when it comes to your identity, who you are as a person and what you represent. And I think the reason why I'm so strong, and I just want to like highlight the difference between myself and Jabz, the reason I'm so strong in my identity as a Ghanaian is because I grew up in Ghana, and that cannot be stripped away from me. Nobody can come and tell me that you do not embody being a Ghanaian. Even though when I go to Ghana, I remember when I first visited Ghana, I realized, ooh, yeah, I am definitely not Ghanaian because culturally, I don't represent the authenticity of what an authentic Ghanaian who's grown up in Ghana, who lives in Ghana is. But I still know that that is my country, that is me, that is like like nobody can take that from me. But I get why for you coming to England as a 3-month-old, that somebody can feel the entitlement to be like, I can take that identity from you because you didn't grow up in the land, you didn't grow up in the culture. I can get why that can be the case. How did that feel when people did that to you, when people took that right to your identity from you?
It doesn't feel good. When I was young, it was not a nice feeling to hear that. And you want to react, but you can't quite articulate yourself. So then someone's snapping a judgment on you. You want to defend yourself, and then you're coming across as aggressive. But now, being older and reflecting, I was like, actually, no, I had a right to be defensive. It's like a form of rejection, and it is not a good feeling, and it's something I would never want. Yeah, some things I could never say to people because knowing how it feels like, yeah, when it's said to you.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting, actually. That's so, so, so interesting. Now, to just also talk about identities as well, I want to also bring out a point that you made that was really fascinating to me because, again, like for me, this would be something that I would definitely feel insecure in, right? We're also both from Yorkshire. And I love the way that you also claim your Yorkshire identity. They're like, you know what? Yes, I am Tanzanian, but I'm also Yorkshire as well. It's a multitude of identities that makes you Jabz because of like where you've grown up, who you are as a person. Well, also me, like I'll introduce myself to people and I'll be like, oh, where are you from? Like, oh, I'm from Yorkshire. But I'm like, oh, but I don't have the accent. Because it's like, I mean, I really, guys, like favorite, like top tier accent in the UK, top tier accent. So because you guys can tell I'm a loyal person. I like to ride. Yes, I like to ride. But top tier accent in the goddamn UK. Come fight me. Come fight me. Come fight me. So I'll be like, oh, I'm from Yorkshire, but I don't have the accent. It's something that is an identity I definitely cannot stand in because I don't believe that it's mine because I moved to Yorkshire when I was like 14. It's not part of my identity. I can definitely be like strong and be like, I'm Ghanaian, like, but I can never be like, oh, but I'm Yorkshire as well. And some people are like, oh no, I hear like little words that you say here and there where like I can hear the Yorkshire in you, but it's not my full embodiment. So like that part of your identity as well, how do you sit with that? How do you merge that two together?
Obviously, because I've lived in Yorkshire most of my life, it's something that I can't. It would be very weird for me not to acknowledge it, and then also believing that it's made me part of who I am. I believe that even they say, isn't that just you? Someone could ask, isn't that just you growing up in UK being British? And I said, no, it's Yorkshire specifically. I believe it will be a different Jabz if I grew up down south, or if I grew up in Wales. It would be a different Jabz and a different lived, experience. So yeah, very much part of my identity, and something else that I'm quite proud of, because okay, we'll talk about being proud of being African. I can say I'm proud to be from Yorkshire as well.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Say them a lot, but I'm not shy to say it. I think almost where I sit and think, if that God, if you have faith and what, and I sit and reflect and think, wow, for God to take me from, if I was taken from Tanzania and then put anywhere, I'm so grateful He put me in Yorkshire.
Come
That is
on.
how grateful I feel about it.
Yeah.
Just knowing what life could have been, and then how it is now, and the people I got to meet.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, yeah, I think not like it didn't have its challenges, but I think I was fortunate.
Yeah. And even with the Yorkshire thing, I like the fact that you categorized it as, if I had grown up anywhere else in the UK, I know I'll be a different person, because I've met Black Londoners, and let me tell you something, they move differently, because there's something about being a Black person, Black African, Black Caribbean person, growing up in London, where there's community, where like in some cases, sometimes a lot of Black Londoners live among Black people. They don't live among white people. For instance, in my high school, particularly in my year group, I was there was just 2 Black girls in my year group. 2 Black girls out of maybe like 100 of us, and maybe 5 Black boys. The year before mine had about 5 Black girls, 6 Black girls, and I was really excited about that. But then I got bumped down. It's probably another story in another episode. Probably you have to go find it. But bumped down. So now I was 2, and this Black girl was so like I will categorize him as like very Yorkshire, very much in the Yorkshire culture. So it was so hard to connect with them. So it made me feel very lonely in my high school. And so like there is a huge difference depending of particularly when it comes to your Blackness and your Africanness or your Caribbeanness or wherever you come from. If you're from you're South American Black or whatever, that is impacted depending on which part of England or Wales or Ireland that you grow up in, and the community that you also belong to as well. And if you're either in touch with your Blackness or if you're not in touch with your Blackness. So I wanted to also follow this up by talking about, so how then did you grow into your Blackness? How did you grow into your Africanness, like, to embody that and be like, oh, I'm grateful to be both, and this is who I am, this is my identity?
As I was saying before, definitely a journey. Like more time, a lot of time to reflect in my teenage years. Now, gaining confidence within myself, having better communication skills, very much more able to articulate myself. Now the internet, everything is in full swing. So to research things, it's very easy now compared to, let's say, mid 90s or whatever. So kind of, because going back to being black people not being a monolith, or African not a monolith, to me accepting and then also like trying to articulate to people that yes, I can be proud of being British and being Yorkshire and not be less African, or I can have an accent and still represent some type of African, because there's different ones. So I'm not going to claim, okay, I'm definitely African. Obviously, I didn't grow up there. So yes, there is a difference in my mannerisms, in my way of understanding things. There's an obvious difference. We know that. Like we've spoken about that a million times. But then, can I just be as someone from diaspora? Can I just be a different type of representation? Because we're not all the same. It's varied. So can I be just a different type of African? I don't believe so. Like I think I have a right to that.
That is such a fascinating question. Do I have a right to that?
Yeah. Actually, and who are you to decide? Who are you to give me that right?
Oh my God, this is going to be an interesting conversation. It's going to be interesting. But yeah, sorry, continue. Sorry.
It's like, why, if we have a chance to all unite and understand, and represent each other, support each other, and work together, why would you shun away one of your own because they're just a bit different than you? To me, logically speaking, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's strength in numbers. So what is the point of shunning away? Oh, she's not African, she's not Tanzanian because she didn't grow up in Tanzania, so we're just going to discard her.
Yeah.
First of all, that's quite mean. And then second of all, what does that do for us as people? If I see you have that type of mentality, I'll also question your pro-blackness. Because if you're really pro-black, why are you discarding your own people?
Yeah.
Depending on where they grew or how they talk. Then now that's coming into discrimination. Where are we going here?
So I'm gonna even like talk about this coming from a place of like, I think that we assume the like discrimination and also othering is a thing of whiteness and it's something that exists within the Western world. But I think that we don't like to also talk about it when it comes to blackness in African culture and stuff like that. I think that like differences is something that's human nature. Therefore, that's why we have classism. That's why we have colorism. That's why we have all of these things. We need, as human beings, for some reason, there's this innate need for us to kind of separate, distance, to create a hierarchy between ourselves to make ourselves feel better and above each other. That's my kind of point of view when it comes to this. And I know that a lot of this, it derives from either insecurity, power, and also a sort of control. So I know people say these things to you when they are trying to basically hide their insecurity of who they are in themselves in particular. Either in terms of their own Africanness, their own like identity of self, and their own perception of how the world view them. And in most cases, when people always tell people you're not this, you're not that, therefore you do not belong, I believe that it's a projection, because they are telling themselves, I have done all of these things to claim this identity. How dare you tell me that you want to claim this identity, this nationality, this whatever, when you don't have to maybe experience the same struggles that I experience or experience the same challenges that I've experienced. Not also understanding and recognizing that like struggle and challenge is not again a monolith, and that you still can be a Black African and have a very tough challenging time in the Western world, even though you didn't grow up in Africa. And it could also be a very difficult experience. I think that kind of nuance is never applied, or that kind of like grace is never really discarded, and it's like mine is either greater than yours. It's kind of like the whole thing about when people talk about oppression Olympics and stuff like that. I think it's in conjunction with like oppression Olympics, where it's like it's a suffering or a difficulty Olympics, where I'm like, oh, my suffering is greater than yours. And so the point that you make when you say like, okay, what right do you have to give me my identity, to tell me I am deserving of my identity, is it's a good point, because it's like, I am who I am. I didn't choose. And the funny thing about it is that even with my Blackness, I can't even wash it off if I want to wash it off. My Tanzanianness, I can't wash it off if I want to wash it, because the forehead is telling you I'm Tanzanian. East African, sorry guys. East African speaking certification is still for me. I don't have a right to this identity. What bullshit. Bullshit. But yeah, sorry, go ahead. Sorry, yes.
It's like you don't choose. You don't choose where you grow up in it. It's wherever your parents put you. So it's like, how am I taking all this heat for something that was out of my hands, innit? The decision was out of my control or whatever,
Did you ever struggle with, because people were always coming at you, right, in terms of your identity, did you then struggle with your identity and your sense of self? Like, and these things, they have tangible impacts, in particular when it comes to your mental health and stuff like that. Did you struggle with your identity in particular?
A lot. I struggled a lot, and I still struggle. Not as much now, but it's still there. It's one thing, okay, to struggle now with your Blackness, Africanness, but then when you're already struggling with other things, part of your identity, you're introverted, you're thingy, your stuff that's going on maybe in your household or your childhood, adverse childhood experiences, when you have all of that also going on, I'm like, okay, that is a lot, guys.
Yeah.
This is a lot.
Yeah.
So, myself, self-worth, self of, sense, whatever, everything. It's just getting crushed. It's literally getting hammered. I can't. And this is it's, I'm catching strays from all sides. And this is as a child and as a teenager. Obviously, if this happens, I just bounce back. I can fight back.
Yeah.
I can go talk to with words. But when you're young, you don't have the vocabulary. You don't know what's going on. You can't even really recognize I'm just catching unfair strays. You just have an instinct that says, this doesn't feel nice. But you're not sure why,
And I'm really glad that you're pointing that out, so you're catching it from both sides, because I think that another part that we're also not talking about is that we are talking about Yorkshire, representing Yorkshire, but that also doesn't negate racism, microaggression, all of that stuff. So that when you talk about that pressure of, I'm getting it both sides, I'm getting it from the white side, and I'm also getting it for my Black side. So my community that's meant to accept me and let me feel like I belong and I'm part of, they're coming against me because I either have a different accent or something like that. And then the other side of the world that I go into that I don't fully belong to because I stick out like a sore thumb. I'm Black.
Yeah.
I'm also not fully accepted in there, so I can get the internal battle and the internal struggle because I think it's this kind of same experience I was talking about where like I get to England now and I'm now having to basically contort myself and try and change my accent because I'm like, oh, I need to assimilate. And I didn't know that the word was assimilate at that time, but I'm like, I need to assimilate quickly because if I do not assimilate quickly, I'm going to be, the punching bag for a lot of people, basically. So I'm like, okay, I'm trying to change my accent. I'm mimicking people's accents so I can change my accent very quickly.
Yeah.
It's funny, I saw a friend recently and she was talking about how like when she met me at uni, like, my African accent was a little bit thicker, but now it's like a little bit faded away. And she was like, Lydia, you're trying to be BBC English. And I'm like, you know what? Yeah, because it's BBC that I've been learning my English. And so you come in and you really struggle with your identity because you want to change a lot about yourself. You want to change who you are as a person to be able to fit in the environment. In particular, when you're a teenager, when you are a young person, your like insecurities are even at its height and it's at its most rampant, and you want so much self-acceptance. You want everybody to love you. You want everybody to see you and validate you and appreciate you. It's something that you definitely struggle with, and it's something that we also walk into our adulthood, and it sometimes stays with us right even into our adulthood as well, that it never leaves us in some cases.
I mean, your teenage years, your late childhood, teenage years, you're so impressionable, you're so susceptible to, people's opinions, and that can actually, that can then shape you for the rest of your life. So it's easy to say, oh, it's just words, but it has an impact. It definitely has an impact on your self of sense of belonging.
Okay, so let's pivot into the next bit. So now, authenticity, because I think that this is a very, very interesting point to bring into. How do you then navigate authenticity in this space of your Blackness, your Yorkshireness, all these othernesses, right? And still being authentically who you are and still not face backlash or challenge, and also not face further consequences of being told that your Blackness still doesn't belong to you because you're indulging in certain things and enjoying things that are not deemed or seen as either Black or African. Like, how do you maintain that? How do you maintain that authenticity?
I think just as a summary, as a general point, if you are trying to be your authentic self, you're always going to face backlash somewhere. It's always going to come. Like, that's expected. You should expect that. It's just then trying to understand what comments to internalize. Some things can be constructive feedback, and some things can be just, unwarranted, negative comments. So then trying to understand what do I need to acknowledge and take in and work on, and what do I just need to brush off. But that in itself, that then is a journey. That takes time to get to that, to have that level of confidence to understand I know who I am, and I'm not really going to pay attention to what anyone else tells me what they think I should be, or the thing that kept me kind of stuck in my ways. Yes, I wanted to adapt. I've tried to adapt. I've tried to assimilate somehow, not in the way you're describing it, no, because I didn't have that thing of moving to the UK and stuff. But as much as trying to fit in, try to stay on the same playing field as everyone. The thing that kept me myself was because I was just so much like, I'm like my parents, and my parents are both Black. So I'm like, all my tastes, music tastes, fashion, everything is coming from them. So I'm like, it came to a point where I'm like, if you're saying I'm not Black because of that, you're saying they're not Black. And then I'm like, I'm bold enough to say, go and tell them they're not Black, because that's the majority of like my uniqueness comes from them. So, and I know I'm not going to go and tell them they're not Black, right? Because they grew up in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can't tell it to them, you can't tell it to me, because literally I get my tastes from them, directly from them. So I never saw the only time growing up, I never saw like certain things had a race to it. I didn't know certain interests were assigned to certain race until maybe my teenage years, when people started saying things.
Yeah.
Growing up, we didn't have that concept that the type of music is for this race, or this type of sport is for this race, this hairstyle is for this race. It all just came at me like in teenage years, and I'm just like, whoa, I'm so thrown, because these are stuff I used to do. These are stuff we used to do with, with my African parents, what we used to engage with.
Mm-hmm.
So I never really saw like, it could not be a black thing or white thing. I just thought these are just hobbies. Everyone has different hobbies.
And I'm actually gonna also like basically add to what you're talking about when it comes to certain characteristics or certain interests or whatever being assigned to a certain race, because I think that in finding who you authentically are is knowing what your interest is, knowing who you are, what you enjoy, what brings you pleasure, what brings you joy, what brings you happiness, and being boldly authentic in that. One of my favorite things to see is seeing people who are just dressed in any way, and I know that, wow, you know what, you carry yourself so well. I can tell that this is authentically who you are as a person, because you're dressing in your own way that suits you, that looks beautiful to you. And for me, that makes you look so beautiful to me. But other people will look at that and be like, oh, you're not following the norm, you're not following the herd, you are weird, you are awkward, you are not this, that, and the other. And when you talk about things around our teens, I relate so much with that, because there was a way that you had to be as a black person in our teens. For instance, being black meant that you had to like hip hop.
Oh yeah.
I'm going to be dropping it off. Like, we need to even talk about some of the things that they would say to you about the fact that you're not black. These very like, oh my goodness, I don't even know the word to use for them, but like just downright ignorant. I just put it that way. Downright ignorant way of identifying someone's characteristics based on a stereotype. Because I don't think that what these black people don't realize as well is that like, or these Africans don't realize that they're also buying into a stereotype that has been put onto us. The idea that you're black and you have to like hip hop is a stereotype. They don't notice that, they don't see that. And then we fall into that and we embody that because we feel like this is who we need to be. And I'm like, actually, and this was me as a teen, actually now I love hip hop. Guys, last summer, through my depression, Kendrick and Drake's beef was what got me through.
Oh.
It was what got me through. Girl, I was glued to YouTube, them streamers, and them reaction content. I was loving every moment of them bars. I love hip hop now. And I'm beginning, because again, when it comes to music, I'm a very much of an eclectic music tastes kind of person. So I love music. I don't pick the genre. I don't have a choice of genre of, oh, this is no, I love all kinds of music. Right now, I'm into alt pop and I'm loving it. Unknown Immortal Orchestra, I've been loving that live. Like, I love that stuff. And that stereotype as a teen, going back to as a teen and being told that, oh, you have to be into hip hop. And I'm like, in Ghana, we had the other hip hop. We had hip life. We had hip life, and hip life was the shit when I was growing up, and I was into hip life. So I now moved to England 2 years later. You're now telling me because I'm black I have to be into hip hop? When I was growing up listening to Phil Collins and my uncles were blasting Celine Dion in their cars left, right, and said, I know every lyric to That's the Way It Is since I was 7. How is that? I am a big fan of Westlife, Backstreet Boys, JoJo. Like, you pick up these interests and all of a sudden you're told, oh, that's white. Why are you into white things? That's white. For you to be black, you have to like R&B and you have to like hip hop. And to me, that was very limited because I was finding bands like Panic at the Disco, Arctic Monkeys from Sheffield. And I'm like, ooh, they sound nice. I like their music. Now I'm being told I need to limit myself to these specific genres, and it was just baffling to me. And another thing that also was very baffling to me at that time, because at that time Afrobeats was just coming into place in terms of, when we're talking about music, we'll come to other things like fashion, looks and stuff like that. Afrobeat was just coming into place at that time, and I've grown up in Afrobeat, so I actually rejected Afrobeats when I moved to the UK because I felt like, oh my god, even not just Afrobeat, but also Nollywood, and I loved me a Nollywood movie. There's drama, the entertainment, all the memes you guys be seeing online. That is Nollywood. That is literally, that's the eliteness of Nollywood. And I felt like I had to reject that because there was this, again, stereotype of it being lower quality, not as good as the Western stuff. And therefore, if you wanted to, have to go for the African American movies and stuff like that. There was always like a shaming of Africanness, a shaming of not being a certain type of like black. I think that I also came at a perfect time in the UK where that was actually, that identity was kind of fading, and being proud of being African was finally emerging. and coming out, because by the time we got to college, you know, people were really getting into, because I remember Column from Book Back coming out and everybody blasting Column in college, and I'm like, wait, these kids are into like these Afro memes. I can remember us finally really beginning to enjoy our Africanness, our blackness without shame, whilst that was not the case when we were in high school and stuff like that. So like, sorry, I've gone all the to basically say that like there was stereotyping that came with being an African or being black, that we basically had to kind of fall into, and therefore for other black people who saw you as not embodying that, you got shamed a lot and you got a lot of pushback for that. What was your experience like? What was your perspective on that? Do you agree with the stuff I'm saying? Do you have any kind of like you know, pushback, any kind of like, you know, add-ons, whatever?
I completely agree. So like it's a weird like juxtaposition, because as much as I was saying, we're talking about, you know, the fellow Africans are like, they're judging you for not being African enough. Then there was another thing of, oh no, but you can't be too African and too proud, because, you know, like you said, it's a certain type of blackness that you have to fit into. You only started now, what is it, 2010 now, to be a trend of like being proud of the music and everything and unapologetic about it. That's just come in like recent years. Before, maybe it's like you had to tone it down. So that's a weird juxtaposition, because those things were happening at the same time.
Exactly.
It's very hard to explain. You had to be there really to understand it.
I even remember going to prom. Like my prom dress, I wore an African outfit. That was the time when most people were not even doing, like now I see a lot of people online. This was in 2011, by the way, guys. I see a lot of people online now, like, and they be wearing African like clothes. The African fashion has literally evolved so much. But I remember having my auntie make me an African attire because I grew up in Ghana and I was really proud of our fashion, and wearing that to prom because I thought I would look beautiful wearing an African print, like wearing an, like as Nigerians would call it, an Ankara, like to prom, because I thought it could also make a beautiful dress, and I looked goddamn good. So I've got the picture. I'll post it one day. But I still look goddamn good in my prom dress, instead of like, you know, the ball gowns and stuff like that. I saw something different. It was even like things like we do in our hair, like we wearing colors, like we wearing blondes and red and doing different like colors, because we loved colorful hair. Like you can see me now, I still love colorful hair. I've not changed. You can see Jabz, she still loves colorful hair. She's not changed. It was authentic to who we are, but it was kind of a shaming of like, oh, so you're not doing black hair, you're not doing brown hair. Like, why are you trying to be so different? Why are you trying to be so unique? And it's like, no, I'm not trying to be unique. I like colors.
Told me like, because I love, anyone who knows me personally, I love colors for the longest time, for like, basically for like the past 20 years. My mom is very keen on bright colored braids. She's like, if I'm going to braid your hair, I want people to see to appreciate the work that went behind it. And I think it just, you can see the detail a bit more with brighter braids. So she was putting on blonde as a child, and then I got into my darker phase, and then went back to platinum blonde again as a teenager, and then experimenting with all the colors of the rainbow. I had all the colors of the rainbow. So what was my point now? So yeah, kind of. So then someone once said to me, when I had like platinum blonde braids, they were like, oh yeah, and next we know, Jackie, you're going to put blue contacts in. And I was like, okay, why would you say that? I'm just having braids. Why would I want to put blue contacts in? She's like, yeah, you just seem like that sort of person. I'm just like, right, okay, cool. It's just hair.
It's funny how like they saw you basically experimenting with colors as you basically rejecting your blackness and rejecting being black. And I wonder what made them believe that like the fact that you were black mean that you couldn't have blonde hair. What made them think that like, oh, the fact that you're black means that like you. And guys, we're talking in the past now. I feel like we've moved on. The world has really changed. We thank God. We're talking about the past now where like, you know, there's, and I think some of these stereotypes and these narratives, they still exist, where like in some cases when you are being a certain way as a black person, it's seen as you're rejecting your blackness, you're rejecting what being black or being African is. Now, and I sometimes want to ask, what is black? What is African? You know what I mean? What is it to you? And does it have to be, again, a monolith? Does it have to be a one thing? Does it have to be the stereotype that we've been given? Do I need to be doing this whole dashiki, kaftan, whatever hair thing? Is that what makes me black? Is that what make me African in your eyes, in your perspective? And also, why are you bringing your subjective point of view of what you think your blackness is, what you think your African is, and why are you imposing and projecting that onto me? And also, why are you being so elitist that you think that the way that you think your subjective view of Blackness and African is should be the same as mine? Why can't I be informed by my own experience? Why can't I be informed by my own journey and my own, like, identity and self? Why can't I define that for myself? Why does it have to be you to be the police and the identifier of what my Blackness and my Africanness is to me? You know what I mean? And why is it that if I am a Black person, I cannot enjoy music that is outside of my realm, that is outside of my culture, that is outside of my genre? Why can't I enjoy fashion? Why can't I enjoy cultures that are outside of my what's it called, my world and my purview? I am somebody who is not loyal to anything. I'm not loyal to an artist. I'm not loyal to music. I'm not loyal to anything. I enjoy what I enjoy. I will go where I like. If I hear a song and I'm like, ooh, I like the string on that, I will listen to it.
To your ears. You listen to whatever sounds good to your ear. I'll hear something in a different language, and I'm like, oh, but the beat sounds so good, the vocals amazing, and you'll just flow. You'll just flow with it. You'll just, So it's always like, it's not that. I'm like, guys, it's not that deep. It's just a hairstyle.
Yeah.
Just
For some people, it is that deep, though. Sorry. And also, another thing I wanted to also point out is that when in some way, and I will call it an insult, even though some people don't see it, they'll be like, oh, you're so white because I like Evanescence. It's like and it's not just that you're so white one, but there's also the other phrasing. Oh, you're such an Oreo.
Oh yeah.
That's the other one as well, because again, you like Western culture, some of Western culture, which is heavily influenced by Black American culture, and some of them also have influences from African culture and stuff like that, because nowadays there's nothing that we have when it comes to culture, when it comes to the world, that is not got influences from across the world. And the fact that like you like that, all of a sudden you are so white. But I like Korean drama, and nobody tell me you're so Korean. Why is that? I've been writing for Korean dramas.
I think now recently we've become, it's now more accepted or normal to now listen to media, to listen to music from different culture, to watch shows from different culture. Back then, it was almost like are you trying to be something different? Are you ashamed of where you come from? I'm like, no, I just found something that looks interesting to watch and we're watching it.
Yeah.
So I think now, because everyone's into Korean drama, nobody will tell you, oh, you're so Korean. I think if this was mid-90s, late 90s, and you're watching Korean drama, I think you would definitely catch some strays. Actually, guaranteed you'll catch strays. It's just like things with the times, and it's like, why do I have to wait for the trends to come in for me to be accepted? Why can't I just do what I want and everyone just leave me alone?
Sis, why do I have to wait for the trends to come in?
It was my parents. Evanescence are one of my favorite bands.
Yeah.
And it was my parents who actually, the first time they came out with their debut single, as a family, we used to listen to them. So it really threw me when they're like, oh, that's so white. This music is so white. And I'm like, but I listened to these bands with my parents.
Have you heard the lead singer's vocal?
Yeah, we're very keen on Evanescence and Linkin Park. My dad loves
Linkin Park, yes.
I was so thrown, like, why? Like, but I listened to this with like my African parents. We love this music. My mom was very much into classic rock, Meatloaf, Guns N' Roses. She introduced me to all those, And then my dad into kind of the old school East African rumba. There's certain styles of Tanzanian music as well. So I just got exposed to all sorts through them, and I just never put a definitive like race or thingy or a label to it. It was just good music to me.
Yeah. And I also want to add that like a lot of us, I think in African American cultures, when you're doing it in stereotypes, they put it this way, like, there's the popular kid, and I'll equate the popular kid to people who basically follow the trend. So trend followers. And there's nothing wrong with that, because at the end of the day, trends are amazing and it's good to be part of a trend. You know what I mean? And then you've got like the geeks, who are like people who be deemed as also, again, alternative, who just like to explore things because they get obsessed with different things, different interesting things that are not very much in the, in the popular realm, that it's not in everybody's purview. And the reason why a lot of us who will be categorized as alternative Black or white or Oreo or whatever was because some of us people were literally geeks who were just really interested in these different things, like interested in anime, like, you know, watching anime because I'm like, wow, like the action sequences, the way they've animated this is like so cool. Wow, look at that fight scene. And it very much is so interesting to me that this is kind of a Western thing more so than that I realized that it was a Ghanaian thing, because I grew up in Ghana, and in Ghana, we didn't get a lot of access when I was growing up. At that, particularly on our national TV or on the free TVs, we didn't get a lot of access to African American or American television per se. But in particular the world that I grew up in, because if you're a middle class Ghanaian or upper class Ghanaian, sorry, I grew up in a very, you know, working class, lower working class Ghanaian household. So it's a very different experience. So what we got access to was like, you know, what was on national TV, and it was either Ghanaian entertainment, or on the weekend you get a Hindu movie on there, like Bollywood. And I was really into Bollywood because they was telling some amazing stories and retelling some amazing American stories that they had stolen, and I was loving it. I was loving every moment of the Bollywood scenes. And there was Korean dramas as well, because we watched a lot of Korean dramas. There was a lot of Chinese dramas, because again, these shows are sold to different countries, and that's how these, you know, media companies make extra money, and other people get to also enjoy and experience these, you know, entertainment platforms in the world, because America is seen as the elite top tier one. The Americans will not buy these media what's it called, entertainment pieces from these countries, but African countries will buy them. And a lot of us who do not have access to those sorts of those sorts of entertainment, we get to have access to those sorts of entertainment, and that was bringing me joy. And there was no kind of like labeling or anything. And more so, like when I was growing up in Ghana as a teen, it was seen as cool if you knew what happened in the K-drama or the telenovela. Guys, they're flipping telenovelas, the Esmeraldas, the La Supadoras, the Juana Lavaje, that ended up being made into actually a hit TV show in America called Jane the Virgin. Like these quality media that was being made across the world that we got to see, because again, like we were getting these media things from it, and there was no stereotypes whatsoever to them. And then you come to the West, you come to the UK, and these things supposedly are looked down on, like Nollywood or like Bollywood or whatever. They're supposedly looked down on, and then when you talk about it, like you watch it or whatever, people then criticize you for it, because it's like, you know, it's like lower tier. It's not. It was never celebrated. It was never celebrated. It was never seen as like the cool thing, the popular thing, or just like, oh, they're just into that, and that's okay. You know what I mean? It was just never that.
No, you really hit the nail on the head. Yeah, I think it's very much your perception of what you think is black or African, or what you think they should be, is very much depending on how you grew up. So I'm giving examples of, oh, I never thought these, I never put race on this because my parents used to listen to this. Same way as somebody maybe who didn't have access to different types of media from the world will obviously then think, okay, no, Africans listen to this because this is what I watched when I was growing up. So you're not black enough because you're listening to something that I wasn't exposed to. I, had an auntie that lived in Kenya until her 20s, and then she moved to Europe. But she said, oh, my teenage crush was Kurt Cobain.
Wow.
And this is when I was in Kenya. So it's like, it depends on what
She's a baddie.
when you're grown up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never linked it to, race or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's also relating back to the, as we describe it, being a geek, the way I define a geek, yeah, somebody who's very interested in, has specific interests and very passionate and, maybe slightly obsessive about them. So when you are like that kind of person, you will just fixate on something just because you think it's amazing. You're not going to care
if it's popular or not.
Or popular, if other people are listening to it. So I'm in love with Bollywood culture. I grew up watching a lot of the films, and I just thought the soundtracks were amazing.
Ooh,
I'm like, the soundtrack, and there's somebody who's very into music, I'm just mesmerized. My teenage years in the UK was spent just listening to songs from Bollywood movies.
And they were amazing. Like they were just, oh my God, they were just amazing. And my opinion, as somebody who I also ascribe myself to as being a geek, is that culture is beautiful, culture is amazing, and I'm obsessed with culture. Like when it comes to media, other people's culture, I love LGBTQ culture. I am a fan of it. I obsessed over cultures. I obsess over entertainment, and that's my geekiness. It could be somebody's geekiness is like literature, reading all the Shakespearean stuff or whatever. That's their geekiness. Everybody's geekiness. Again, being a geek is not monolith. Is there's different types to maybe another episode on that. Being a geek is not a monolith. There's a different flavors to being a geek. But mine was a very much like entertainment media, like you said, cultures. And I've always loved watching people's cultures. I'm very fascinated by that and just enjoying their music, enjoying everything about them, because I think that they're just like so amazing. And I feel like if I ever end up in that part of the world, I'm like, wow, like I understand this about your culture because I've seen it through your media and how your media has portrayed you. And that's a very, it may not be an accurate portrayal of it. It may be a way that if we're looking at it from a very much of a social political point of view, that's how the country is selling himself or put himself out there, whatever. But at the end of the day, I still enjoy the cultures. You know what I mean? And there is beauty to that. And there is nothing wrong with being obsessed in that way. So now, as a fully mature, grown woman, how would you say your blackness is? How would you identify your blackness? How would you identify your Africanness? Like that is very unique to you and your experience.
I think because I'll just symbolize it like my Africanness is Jabz' personality, but she's African. But because, so it's whatever I am as a person, but because I'm African, it's part of the Africanness, basically. That's in a nutshell, referring back into the beginning, very proud. I'm very keen on authentic, like small media, authentic storytelling, trying to bring us together as people, showing us trying to uplift each other as Africans. I'm extremely big on that. Being excited about learning different African cultures. I don't think it would be, you can say, I'll struggle if someone says they are pro-African and pro-Black, but not very open to other African cultures. I'll really doubt you are really pro-African. I'd like to put our best foot forward, putting my African people on a pedestal. I'm not waiting for the big guns to come and find us and put us on a platform. I can make my own platform. We're all very capable of making our own platforms to showcase ourselves, because every other culture, every Asians, Koreans, Indians, they take pride in their work and they've not waited for it to be validated by Western world. It's only us, I feel like we like to wait for some validation. I'm the sort of person, no, this is quality, this is amazing. I'll put it on display because I'm just so proud of the stuff we can come out with and what we produce. This is maybe, I'm focusing on media.
Yeah.
What about you?
I will also add to what you said, and I think that like there is a lot of people out there right now who are also doing this, like loud and proud African, not waiting for anybody to come and validate it. So it's good to see that you're also on board with that, because I think that a lot of Black people have come to the place where they realize, you know what, we're just gonna do what we're gonna do. And you know what I mean? Like an example for me would be like Fuse ODG, and the way that he's trying to really represent Africa to the world, and not just Ghana, but like Africa to the world in terms of our image and everything. And even with things like people like Bozma St. John, and when she started the Year of Return to Ghana, and I'm speaking to this because again that's like the news I consume, guys, so like it could be more in other parts of the world, but Year of Return to Ghana, and kind of getting a lot of African Americans to be in touch with like their and their Black roots, and also like the purview of how Ghana is and how Ghanaians look at, like trying to change the narrative from like basically the way Africa is viewed to the world, working out to basically change that narrative because it's very much of a skewed, very biased point of view. And there is this sociologist I really loved when I was doing my degree called Edward Said, and he talks about Orientalism and the Orient, and how like you Westerners basically come in as the Orient, and then they basically look at a certain culture and from a certain purview, and they narrate that culture story from their very skewed stereotypical purview, instead of letting the actual natives of the land to narrate their own story. And I think that what Jabz was basically talking about is how, like, a lot of us Black people, a lot of us Africans are basically beginning to work on changing the narrative and changing the story and being like, okay, this is who we are, how we are. And again, us having this conversation also contributed to that, yes, we are not a monolith. There are different types of Blackness. There are different types of Africanness out there. For me in particular, what Blackness and what Africanness mean to me now is just being in my authenticity. I am who I am. Take me as I am. I do not care whatever criticisms, whatever disagreements, whatever point of view that you see me in whatever lens that you're coming from. I do not care, because at the end of the day, you're coming from your point of view, your very subjective point of view.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to project who I am and who I want to be in my Blackness and my Africanness onto you. And I hopefully appreciate that you also respect me and not project your Africanness and your Blackness to me. And I hope that I give people space to also be able to be allowed to be whatever type of way they want to participate in their Blackness and in their Africanness. And we need to also acknowledge how for a lot of people out there, there's a lot of insecurities in their Blackness.
Yeah.
There's a lot of insecurities in who they are as an African people, particularly when you live in the West. As well, and you either didn't grow up on the continent, or you've partially grown up, but you've come and you've had some self-hate, you've struggled with a lot of like racial abuse or whatever. I'm not gonna go and tell people that they shouldn't feel the way they feel about their identity, their self, their culture. Everybody has a history. Everybody has something that has gone on, that has defined the narrative that they carry with them and how they're going through life and regarding their identity. For me, I'm always going to wear Ghana proud and loud. And even in terms of being African and being into other African cultures, I'm really also glad that you brought that up, because one thing that I would definitely say I'm so grateful to have been in the UK is how much African cultures and Black cultures that being in the UK has exposed me to. I appreciate that my best friend is from East Africa, Tanzania. You know what I mean? A lot of my friends are from East Africa. I appreciate that I've gotten to experience their food, their culture, who they are as a people. We've even had so many interesting conversations about how we as a people are different but also the same.
Yeah.
Culturally, I appreciate meeting my Caribbean friends and how they navigate and having connections in terms of looking at our history and stuff that they've carried on from from the African roots and now to modern times. I appreciate just having the space to be able to encounter African American culture, because I live in the UK and it's such a big deal here, and being able to get into that and learn about their history, their experience, their point of view and stuff like that, the entertainment culture and stuff like that. There is a brilliance to sometimes living in the West and being exposed to so much of the Blackness that is so varied in its own variety, in all of its variety, in all of its beauty. And I love every single one of them. I love it. That Issa Rae meme was, I'm rooting for everybody Black. That is me. I love Black people. I love everybody, but I love Black people the most. I think that as Black people are just a unique breed. There's just something about us that's just like so wonderful, so amazing, that I just love. And I think that because of that, people will say that I'm Blackity Black. Because of that, nobody can ever make me insecure about my Blackness, and for sure will never make me insecure about being an African woman, because that is not yours to give and to take away from me, for sure. So yeah, I will end with that. I don't know if you have anything else to add on to it, girl.
I think you hit the nail on the head, and you said it better than what I'd be able to say. But basically, appreciating that God brought me to this country where I've been exposed to so many beautiful cultures, and just having the opportunity to soak all of it up. It is truly like, when I think of the big blessings in my life, that is definitely one of the top ones that come there. And I just would urge anybody, who lives in the UK, just as much as, yes, there's challenges, there's a lot. And I think we've kind of touched very lightly on the challenges, but we've not delved into it on this episode. As much as all the hardship is, to kind of just sit and reflect and just, soak it up. in an era as well where everything is so accessible, content is accessible, you can learn so much, you can just really enrich your mind just learning from all the other cultures that are around you. Same, me also learning from my friends from different African countries and just getting to learn, about their life. It's really beautiful. And I'm not really like a cheesy thingy person. I'm quite dry in my talking, but that is one thing I can really get passionate about.
I'm glad that you said that. And I'm just going to end with this quickly as well. So even with the shared culture, last year, in 2023, December, I was having a very, 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 very shit day. And I went to Jab's house and Jabs was like, "Oh, by the way, there's this Ghanaian song, you know it." And it was by Kwabena Kwabena Aso. Anybody who's Ghanaian knows this song. And let me tell you, this song is OG old school. When I say OG old school, OG old school. This song came out when I was like 6 or 7 in Ghana. It was a hit. The fact that Jabz, who grew up in the UK, knew that song was like, oh my God, this is where, like cultures do really intersect and just some geeks just, some music geeks just never fade
No, I
away.
think so
It's a
the
hit.
vocals, I can hear the passion in his voice, even though I don't really understand what he's saying.
You know what? And I was explaining to Jabz basically what the song is about. The song is actually about him basically cussing his ex-girlfriend and his best friend out because they cheated on him. He traveled abroad and he was working and funding his girlfriend, and his girlfriend was cheating with his friend. And that's what that song is about. But anyway, we'll end it here. Otherwise, we just keep going on. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you really enjoyed this episode of us talking about Blackness being a monolith. I think that maybe we'll have to come back again and talk about the challenges of, our Black experience. Yeah, talk about our challenges of our Black experience and stuff like that. But I'm just going to say, Jabz, I really appreciate you doing this series with me. It's going to be a fun one. I'm really looking forward to us just like working on this. I think it's really fun because we've had these conversations so many times. It's just to have these conversations properly as well, like, intersecting mental health, wellness, and also like our own experiences into it is like so beautiful. Please subscribe, like, and share if you enjoyed this episode. Go support Jabz. She's got a charity called Same Ground on Instagram. She's got music out called Nuonami, right? Muonami. Guys, my Swahili is not great. Not
Yeah,
great. Huondami. Yes. We'll write it down, guys. It's a fantastic song. She looks like a baddie in it. Go check it out. Follow me at the Reforming Pessimist on TikTok, Instagram, wherever you are. I'm posting on there, sharing nice snippets from this podcast and all of that. So I'm trying to interact with people. I'm trying to build a platform. So support a bitch out here. And I'm just so grateful if you got to the end and listened to us. I really appreciate it. And we'll be back with another We're Not a Monolith episode very soon. Love you all. Bye. Bye.